Have you ever noticed how we're all just sort of expected to work the same way? Focus on one thing, follow a linear path, stick with it until you succeed. I spent years feeling like I was doing something wrong because I couldn't make myself fit that mold. I'd get really excited about a project, dive in super deep, and then feel my energy shift to something completely different. And instead of just trusting that shift, I'd beat myself up for being unfocused or lacking commitment. Sound familiar? Well, then I stumbled across human design, and it gave me a really fascinating lens to see myself differently. I am a manifesting generator with wiring that craves variety and multiple channels for my energy. But what stuck with me is how it's shifted the story I tell myself about who I am. We all carry these stories about being too much or not enough, too slow or too impulsive, too loud or too quiet. And we base these stories on comparing ourselves to people who might be operating from completely different blueprints. Your human design suggests why certain people thrive under pressure, while you might need space to process. Why some people make snap decisions, while others need a little more time to feel into what's right. Why pushing harder often gets you absolutely nowhere. And when I really think about it, it offers something powerful. Permission to stop forcing yourself into someone else's mold. I talk to so many of you who are exhausted from trying to be what you're not. Your boss wants you to focus on one thing when your mind naturally connects multiple dots. Your family thinks you're too emotional when you're designed to process through feelings. Your partner can't understand why you need so much time alone. And all of these little misunderstandings turn into stories that we tell ourselves. I'm scattered. I'm too sensitive. I'm antisocial. I'm difficult. But let me ask you a question. Are those stories really serving you? The research is clear. Chronic stress from forcing yourself to operate against your natural rhythms takes a physical toll. Your immune system weakens, your brain fog increases, your body literally fights back. And the psychological cost? A recent study actually showed that 70% of workers feel that they can't be their authentic selves at work. That's not just sad, it's a massive waste of human potential. When I started giving myself permission to work in bursts of energy instead of forcing consistent output, everything changed. My productivity shot up. My creativity flowed. I stopped wasting energy fighting my own nature. And honestly, I think I loved myself a little bit more. But here's what gets really interesting. Understanding that I'm wired differently has given me genuine compassion for others. That colleague who needs to think out loud, that friend who disappears for days, the family member who makes decisions I would never make. They're not trying to annoy me. They're operating from their own blueprint. Today, our guest is Erin Claire Jones. She has helped thousands of people explore their human design and use it as a tool for better decision-making and stronger relationships. She's offering a perspective that just might change how you see yourself and others. And if you love this episode and want to go even deeper, Erin was actually on this podcast back in episode 160, so you can find that one at mindlove.com/160. In this episode, you will learn how to identify your human design type and what it suggests about your natural decision-making process. Practical ways to work with your energy instead of constantly fighting against it. And how to rewrite limiting stories that come from comparing your path to people with completely different designs. Before we go deep today, I want to give you a little gift, and I want to give it to you every single day. It's called the Morning Mind Love. I know how life can be. You're all fired up after an inspiring episode, and then a new day or a new challenge comes at you, and it's just hard to keep up that energy. Well, the Morning Mind Love is kind of like an oracle from your higher self to help you start each day with a positive focus. Plus, when you sign up, you get 2 free gifts, a 30-minute binaural meditation and 30 days of journaling prompts to help you remember who you truly are. And it's all completely free. So join over 9,000 people and go to mindlove.com to sign up, or text the word morning to 33777.
I think as a projector, you might find that you end up in positions where you are stewarding other people, whether that's as a podcast host, as a therapist, as a coach, as a CEO. Like you're so good at asking the right questions and kind of making people feel so seen and so understood. People often really kind of love being around projectors because they make them feel so seen. And then as projectors, we're here to be invited into opportunities. So really waiting for people to kind of invite us and see us. When I look at how this book came about, I talked to a lot of publishers, I talked to a lot of agents, but in both those moments, there was one publisher and one agent that made me feel like so seen and that really kind of reached out and invited me into doing this. And like those were the ones that were the right fit for me. So just really kind of watching where you feel genuinely invited in and recognized.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
So I know we've discussed this before, but it's been a while. So what inspired you to make human design and also helping people make aligned decisions a part of your life story?
Oh gosh, it was just a very serendipitous moment that really kind of brought human design into my life. If people are unfamiliar, it is a mystical assessment tool that is based on our time, date, and place of birth. And it lets us know how we are wired to thrive in every part of our life, from decision making to relationships to career to parenting. And I was introduced to human design in 2015. I might have told you this story the first time we connected, but I was sitting at a gathering in New York City and had a stranger share my human design chart with me. And it was the most resonant thing I had ever heard, but it was also very confronting because it felt like he was calling me into a way of being that felt far more authentic, but also I didn't totally trust that it was okay or possible to show up that way. And he then invited me to study human design with him. So it really was this crazy invitation. But I will say, now that I have been sharing the system for 10 years, I think the reason that I stay in it is that I have never seen a system offer such practical tools for people to really use to transform their lives and to learn how to show up in business in a way that feels good and is more successful, to learn how to parent in a way that feels really authentic, to learn how to relate and show up with their partners in a way that feels good and is also really respects how different they are. So I just see human design constantly giving people so much permission to be themselves. And I love being in a position where I get to keep doing that and sharing that with people.
Looking back, what's a major life decision that you made before knowing your human design that you realized you would have approached completely differently if you had known it?
I think that it was funny, and I actually chose not to do this. So I think that in some ways, was living my design. But when I left the first startup that I was working at, I was like, I want to work in venture capital. Like the idea of like working at companies, and I was working at startups was so fun. I loved founders. But it also kind of came from this place of like, oh, this is like a cool new field, but like not that it felt like what I wanted to do. It felt like more kind of the optics of it. And I chose not to do that and was kind of directed in another path, another way. But I think that like that really wasn't coming from the most genuine place within me. Because honestly, just like I love interacting with people, I love guiding people, I love asking questions. And I think that I have found my way into a career that feels way better and was driven from just a more genuine place.
So now you have a new book. Tell us how this understanding of human design has deepened and really what you're teaching people through it now.
I think that for so long, I studied human design for a long time. I have studied for a long time. And so I so often would share with people all the things that I learned. But then I started sitting with a lot of people. I've sat with over 4,000 people in sessions one to one. I've had tens of thousands of people that I've done personalized guides for. So I think what has changed for me is that I've really had the experience of sitting with people and really seeing how human design is actually showing up in their lives. Like, how is it changing their relationships, the way they parent? How is it changing their business, the careers they're choosing? And so it feels like so much of what I'm sharing right now is actually driven by story and people's actual experiences, which I think is so much more interesting. I think what I love so much about the book that I've written is that it's not only around how you can use human design in every part of your life, but it is full of so many case studies and so many stories of people actually doing it. And I feel like that just breathed life into the system in a way that I haven't seen before. So I think that the way that I share right now is it feels like it's like coming from the collective wisdom in a way that maybe it wasn't. I didn't have the experience, I didn't have the wisdom, in my first many years sharing it.
So I have a I've had an interesting relationship with labels over the years. At times, they're so helpful for understanding myself in a new way. And then at one point in my life, I realized there was a lot of different labels like empath, ADHD that I was using as a crutch. And
Yeah,
so for me, when I uncover something like human design, Enneagram, those types of things, it's really important for me to use them as a power tool versus a crutch versus, oh, well, I can't do that because it's my human design. So, what do
totally.
you think is the most empowering way to use the information you receive from your human design to just sort of live more fully rather than keeping you in a box?
Yeah, I think, and it's also funny because I look at your design and your design is so much around being like multi-passionate, multi-hyphenate. So your design's very much like can't put her in a box, So totally makes sense that you feel that way. I think that, my approach to human design has always been that this is meant to be an empowering tool and not a disempowering one. And so whenever I sit with people, I always remind them, if anything I share doesn't feel useful, supportive, resonant, please let it go. But I think my kind of orientation towards the system is that it doesn't really matter to me whether it's true. What matters is whether it's useful. Like if I share something with somebody that feels like, oh, I understand why this thing hasn't been working. There's another way. Or, oh, I understand why I haven't been able to communicate this properly. Let me try a different tactic. Then, like, I think it's amazing for that reason. So I think when I sit with people, the point is that this is meant to be an empowering thing. And if anything feels like it's not that, I would let it go. I think it's really easy, like you said, to be like, oh, I can't do this because of this. But human design is never meant to tell you what you can or cannot do. Rather, it's meant to tell you how you can do the things you choose in the way that's best for you. So it's not meant to tell you that you can't be an entrepreneur, that you can't be a parent. It's more like, okay, if you choose to be an entrepreneur, how can you do that as a manifesting generator? If you choose to become a mother or whatever, it's like, how can I do that as a projector? And so I would just say that, like, I would just have that consciousness when you're exploring the system. Like, am I holding myself back and using the system as an excuse? Or am I using it as a way to kind of move forward and choose the things that I want and just do it in a way that feels better to me?
I'll give an example of how I found human design really helpful. And it's one of those parts of my multi passionate personality. So I have, or historically, I remember I was starting my business and I was watching some of my super successful friends. And what would happen is like I would try a new venture, a new program, a new, little facet of my business. And what I recognized in some of my friends, one in particular that I'm thinking about, and really just what I understood in business in general, it's that consistency. It's like stick with one thing until you really market it and you really grow it. And I had such a hard time with that because I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do it with this one. And then I would. And what I was experiencing is that I would sort of find something out about myself and I'd be like, no, this isn't quite it. This isn't quite the thing that I want to be known for. And I'd pivot. And I recognized I would beat myself up where I'm like, maybe I just don't have it in me to stick to this one thing. And then I got a reading from Human Design and she told me, no, you need to figure out what works for you. I learned that I do identify with my work more than the average person, that multi-passion. And so it allowed me to kind of hop around. This might have made success a little bit slower for me, but I also realized I probably wouldn't be happy if I had done it the one way that I had learned.
Yeah.
And so for me, with what I said earlier about putting me in a box, I didn't want to use that as an excuse to not follow through with something, but I did suddenly realize what I was looking for. And that was really true. I needed to find the thing I wanted to be known for. And so it gave me permission to do that, but also be aware of my tendency to jump around when I did find the thing. So that was a really big shift that I still think about on a daily basis in my work.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I think when I first started sharing human design, I really feared that it would feel too prescriptive for people, that it would be like, oh, I feel put in a box in a way that feels confining. But my experience with people is that when I share their human design with them, they're just like, you have given language to my experience in a way I've never experienced before. And I feel so liberated to like just do things in a way that works for me. So I just haven't had the experience really actually at all so far around people feeling confined by it. They often feel expanded by it because, like you said, like, you had the life experience of being like, I need multiple things to stay excited. I need things to stay fresh and new. Like that is so who you are. Like innovation is built into your design. So like you sticking with one thing forever is like it's just not going to feel good for you. And for you and your design, when you're genuinely lit up and excited, your energy is so vital and so charismatic and so magnetic. And like, that's just worth it. You know, when I look at my design, like my design is so much around my energy ebbing and flowing, like not having the energy to do all the time. And I have tried at so many points in my life to try to be that consistent doer, and I just can't do it. You know, it's just like not where I thrive. And so I can resist that as much as I want, but like you, it's like every day I realize like the more I allow rest, the more I allow space, the more successful I am. And so I do think there's this level of like giving language to things that we actually already know and just giving ourselves more permission to step into it. Like you already know that you're not content pursuing a linear path. I already know that like going back to back all day long, like I'm just not great. I'm not very effective. So it's like, it just reminds us like that's okay. And we can be successful that way.
Have you ever thought about the true cost of a bad hire? It's not just the financial hit. It's the energy drain, the team disruption, and the time that you'll never get back. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. What makes Indeed different is how they've reimagined the entire hiring process. Their sponsored jobs feature isn't just about visibility, it's about precision. Your job post actually reaches the specific people with the skills you're looking for, not just anyone searching for work. And this targeted approach makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. But it's not just about quantity. It's quality applications from people who actually fit what you're looking for. I love that Indeed has eliminated all the traditional hiring headaches. There are no monthly subscriptions to forget about, no long-term contracts to trap you, and you only pay for actual results. Think about this. While we've been talking, 23 hires were made on Indeed worldwide. That's 23 businesses that just found their missing piece. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/mindlove. Just go to Indeed.com/mindlove right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/mindlove. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I have this problem with consistency. Some weeks I'm super motivated to plan healthy meals, and other weeks it's just overwhelming. Do you know what I mean? But that all changed thanks to Hungry Root. It's the easiest way to eat healthy, and it's actually consistent. What's amazing about Hungry Root is how flexible it is. They're like a personal shopper and nutritionist rolled into one. They recommend healthy groceries and meals tailored to your tastes and health goals. But I love how their recipes are actually fast, 15 minutes or less, not chef 15 minutes, where you somehow need to chop 10 vegetables in 30 seconds. Real life 15 minutes. And that's a game changer for those weeks when I just can't deal with complex cooking. The variety keeps things interesting too. With over 15,000 recipes each week, I'm never bored. And they have everything from main meals to healthy snacks, smoothies, and even ready-to-eat options for those extra busy days. But what I appreciate most is the quality. No high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweeteners, or preservatives in any of their food. Just real ingredients that make you feel good. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box plus a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code mindlove. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code mindlove to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code mindlove. So give us an overview of the main human design types, which we've covered before, but it's been a long time. And also I find even just hearing it through the different words that a different person might describe it as is helpful for my understanding and my just overall knowledge of it. So what are those?
Of course. So in human design, there are 5 types. This is just the first level. There's so much more underneath it, as you know, and as the listeners know, like it just keeps getting more and more specific. If you don't yet know your type, you can look it up at humandesignblueprint.com. I'll start with yours because we've referenced now this manifesting generator type. It's going to be very similar to the one after, which is a generator. So manifesting generators are very multi-passionate by nature. As we just discussed, you're not somebody who's meant to be really content choosing one field or choosing a linear path. Things need to stay fresh and new and exciting. That might look like you doing multiple things at once, like having a podcast and also being a coach and also starting this business. Or it could just look like having a lot of novelty in your role. For you, you're talking to different people every day. So I'm sure that provides some of that kind of freshness that you might be seeking. Manifesting generators are very fast. You might find that you can accomplish things faster than most when you feel genuinely excited by them. So I would say one reminder for you is to not expect others to move at your speed. Efficiency is one of your gifts, but not a gift shared by everyone. And I have so many manifesting generator clients that are disappointed with the comparatively low capacity of others when it's like nothing's wrong with them. They're just different. And human design is such a cool tool to realize how different they are and what their distinct gifts are. I would say as a manifesting generator, when you're genuinely lit up, you have so much energy to do and create and build. And so it's to everyone's benefit in your life that you really prioritize the things that fill you and really kind of create space to do the things that move you on a daily basis. And the last piece that I would share is that you are somebody who's very magnetic by nature. You are not meant to go after life and chase after things or come up with ideas out of thin air. It's really about what shows up in your world, what naturally sparks your gut, and kind of following those natural breadcrumbs and seeing where they lead you, even if they lead you in unexpected directions. How's that all feel to you?
It's exactly me. It's funny. I don't know if anybody's told me the part about being disappointed in other people's output. I don't even know a manifesting generator who outputs as fast as I do. And every time I'm in a program, people are like, how did you just do that? You just created a whole business overnight. And I'm like, I don't know. This is just how my brain's worked forever. And I used to think it was my ADHD hyper focusing. I think it's a beautiful combination of both. I'm one of those people who loves my ADHD. I would not trade my brain for anything. But yeah, it's interesting that it shows up in my design because that's been true for me since elementary school when I can remember
Wow.
just being able to see what other people were doing versus me. I'm like, I just don't understand. And so, yeah, that's been something I've learned hiring people, being in groups and it used to be a source of frustration, but now it's just kind of a little bit of pride.
I love hearing that. I tell a story in my book around one client hiring 7 assistants. She like came to me. She's like, Erin, I just fired my 7th personal assistant. Like, what is wrong with them all? And I was like, what's going on? And she's like, none of them can move as fast as me. And we kind of look at her manifesting generator design. I was like, I don't think it's actually advantageous to hire somebody who moves as fast as you. Like, I think it's actually somebody who's a little bit more methodical and like can handle the step by step in a way that frees you to move fast. And she just realized so much of her frustration came from the expectation that others would operate like her, And I think human design brings so much compassion to our relationships, whether it's our colleagues or our partners or our friends or our kids, because we realize, oh, like they're not meant to do this the same. They're meant to be different, and that's perfectly okay. But that's just such a common pattern with manifesting generators. They're just like, why is everyone so slow? And I'm like, they're just different. Not as fast as you, and
Really
that's okay.
slow.
Yeah. Okay, so then we have generators, very similar in many ways to what I just shared. Generators are also these very creative doers that can really kind of bring ideas to life when they're really genuinely excited by them. They might enjoy the step-by-step process a little bit more. They kind of bring this very masterful, steadfast, committed energy. I love working with generators. They kind of have this like contagious passion, this infectious joy that is just really motivating for me to work around. Similar to what I shared with you, when they are genuinely lit up and excited, their energy is just like vital and expansive and pours out and really lifts up everyone around them. And they, like you, are kind of meant to let things come to them and just see what naturally sparks their gut before they go after it.
I
Then
think
we've got,
generator.
oh, really? It's a great combo.
He's like, generator, that doesn't sound good. And I was like, yeah, everyone wants the one with the manifest in it.
I know. These names
Until they learn.
until they learn. I will say that like I'm so biased towards generators. I love every type, but I'm married to a generator, so I just think they're the best, Like I think that there is nothing for me that kind of beats being around a lit up generator or manifesting generator because like that energy is so positively infectious. And I think sometimes both of these types, generators and manifesting generators, don't realize how impactful their energy is. Like, and I think, when they're lit up, like I said, like they light up a room, but also say you're really frustrated by your work, you're really bored, you're really burnt out, like you also project that. When I'm around a generator that's frustrated, like I feel that sluggishness. And so again, I would just remind any generator or manifesting generator listening, like you being lit up benefits all of us. And so really prioritizing that however and wherever you can. Then we've got projectors. Do you know any projectors?
You.
Exactly. I'm one. So projectors are really here to be leaders, guides, advisors, teachers, not here to do all the doing. And so as projectors, our energy really naturally ebbs and flows. I think one thing that's really made a difference for me, and I'm still learning this, I'm a mother of two very young kids. I run a business. Life is a little bit crazy. I have a book coming out in 2 months. Like life is full on. And building space and moments of rest into my day makes the biggest difference. And so for me, that looks like a 5 minute break, not an hour these days, but still building in those moments of pause can be so refreshing and so needed for us as projectors. It's really healthy to kind of not book things back to back and to kind of allow those natural ebbs and flows to run their cycle. I think as a projector, you might find that you end up in positions where you are stewarding other people, whether that's as a podcast host, as a therapist, as a coach, as a CEO. Like you're so good at asking the right questions and kind of making people feel so seen and so understood. People often really kind of love being around projectors because they make them feel so seen. And then as projectors, we're here to be invited into opportunities. So really waiting for people to kind of invite us and see us. When I look at how this book came about, I talked to a lot of publishers, I talked to a lot of agents, but in both those moments, there was one publisher and one agent that made me feel like so seen and that really kind of reached out and invited me into doing this. And like those were the ones that were the right fit for me. So just really kind of watching where you feel genuinely invited in and recognized.
One thing I've come across in different human design conversations is when people first hear the idea of waiting for an invitation, they immediately interpret that as almost being disempowered. Like, because we're shown this hustle culture so much of like, go out and get it. And we watch these documentaries or read these biographies of people that are real go-getters, and we're taught that that's something we should all learn and we should all go after. So how do you reframe that to a place of empowerment?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I too felt that way. I remember when I learned that aspect of my chart, I was like, I don't know how I'm supposed to build a business waiting for an invitation. And like, it also doesn't feel very fun to just sit on my couch and see what happens. I think the thing to know as a projector is that your energy is like very intense in a very beautiful way. When somebody's like ready to like receive your gifts and be seen by you, it's like the most transformative thing ever. But if somebody's like not really ready to be seen by you, like it can be a little bit intense because you just like really kind of pour into people in a really deep way and they have to be ready for it. So I think what I have come to realize is that the invitation is not a tool to hold me back. It's a tool to protect my energy and just make sure I'm putting it in the right place. And it basically means that you might not be the most successful if you kind of pitch individuals. If you're like, I want to work with this person, I've got to like make it happen. Whereas when you just share your gifts in kind of like a broader, more authentic way, for me, that has looked like on Instagram or in newsletters or on podcasts, then it really allows kind of the right invitations and people to come to me. And so this is not a passive strategy. I would say your job is to make yourself visible in a way that feels good to you and see who comes to you from that effort. And so that for me has been far more successful than kind of any other pursuit. So it's not about doing nothing. It's just about kind of seeing what happens when you put yourself out there. Does that feel clear?
Yes, it does. And it's everything I believe in. There's so many different little seeds I've gotten over the years. I've done 2 interviews with people who made the science of luck their life path. And we think like just being lucky is just doing nothing, but you have to meet the universe. You have to put yourself out there. Go on podcasts, tell your story, you can sit there and learn to own your story or learn to really get clear on your vision. And those are the kinds of things that make you magnetic, that make the vision magnetic. And then you'll just find people coming to you. So I love how you said it's not something passive. It's not just waiting for success to find you. You have to do your own, even if it's the inner work, to create room for that success or to put yourself out there to the people who are going to come to you. But that's when life starts feeling magical.
100%, and I would say that no strategy is meant to be passive in human design. And I even had a moment, I don't know, a few years ago or like 8 years ago where I was like, oh, I can't like reach out or do anything because of my strategy. And my husband just like really called me out on it. He's like, it's really not what your strategy says. I'm like, I was just totally using that as an excuse. Like, I'm gonna, be braver, but being visible felt scary, so I was kind of using that as a moment to hide myself then. But there are ways to be proactive with every single part of our chart. It's just going to look a little bit different. And I have found that over and over again. I have tried the other strategies, trust me, and they just don't work, and I still try them only to be reminded time and time again, this is the way that really does work the best for me.
Yeah, and even looking at my path, because I know there's an element for manifesting generators that's sort of similar, right? That's the
Just like letting things come to you. Yeah,
yeah.
the difference here I would say is that like with projectors, we're waiting for like a direct invitation for me to be like, Erin, like I want you to do this. Whereas you're kind of waiting for a response to anything that shows up in your world. So you could listen to a podcast, you could see a job posting, you could like have a idea spark for a business from a mastermind, and like you're just waiting for anything that just like sparks you and to follow that, even if it's not directly pointed at you. Does that
Yes,
feel clear?
it does. And I'm really big on acting on inspiration because I feel like inspiration is a gift. And if I don't take a hold of it, somebody else will, but there's something about it that's meant for me. And so I know that if I keep passing off my seeds of inspiration, I don't receive the inspiration as much. But when I do and I act on them, it's like I'm constantly guided. That's when life just feels so magical to me. And when I have, it's like all of my really big opportunities, different partnerships asked on some of the biggest podcasts have been because, like we talked about, I put myself out there because I acted on some seed of inspiration. But those moments are like, then somebody reaches out and I didn't have to go reach out to them for the opportunity. They found me, but I wasn't doing nothing. I was doing everything that I could, that I was inspired to do.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That is like such a beautiful just way to phrase it. It's just like acting on the sparks of inspiration and seeing where it takes you. Another practical example for people to hear. I had a client once who was reading a Wall Street Journal article and like all of a sudden was just like, God, all these things are missing in this article. Like this is missing, this is missing. So she just like reached out to the editor and shared her thoughts, and they ended up kind of collaborating on many pieces over many months. But like it was very much like her acting on that inspiration. So she did pursue the thing, but it was based on that kind of gut feeling and natural response she had. And that's kind of the key for manifesting generators is like, where is that inspiration coming from and how can you act on that over kind of what you think you should do?
So something interesting happened to me just recently where I have a lot of amazing people on my podcast. And then there was just some other people that I was really inspired by from other places. And I wanted to bring on a new type of person onto the show. And some of them made really great interviews, and other ones I didn't air because they weren't used to being on podcasts and they did not know how to tell their story. So it was just like long, rambling things. And I was like, man, how long is it going to take me to cut this up? And I still don't know what I'm going to do with them quite yet. But yeah, it made me realize, wow, even some of these people with huge platforms don't understand the power of their story and how to tell it. And that was my inspiration. And I just went hard on it. And since I've been so lit up in my work. It's just my inspiration's been flowing through me, but I had to be open to that inspiration, doing what I always do. And it's like my life just carved itself.
I know. And like, I think that it can be easier than we think sometimes, especially for those two types of just like, it's gonna just show up and your work is to just pay attention. And sometimes generators and manifesting generators get so fixated on one outcome that they kind of become blind to everything else that's coming their way. So part of your work is to just keep your awareness open and be like, oh, what is showing up? I had another client, one story I tell in the book is she had like a really clear idea of the client she wanted for her business. And she was just like pitching and going after them and like it just was not working. And then she went to a mastermind weekend and somebody like suggested like a totally different concept, a totally different field. And yet her gut was like, yes, explore that thing. And she trusted it. And then she kind of built a business based around this idea that was so unexpected, yet felt so right. And that's kind of the dance and magic of generators and manifesting generators.
So which ones haven't we covered yet?
We haven't covered manifestors and reflectors. So manifestors are very disruptive, innovative people that are kind of meant to just bring new ideas into the world. Their gift is often not finishing everything they start, but just breathing life into new projects. And so often manifestors have been made to feel like they're like flaky because they can't finish everything they start, but like that's just not their role. They tend to be a little bit provocative, so it's really good to kind of be in spaces and be with people that appreciate kind of how disruptive they are and how they really are meant to kind of spark new things in the world and people around them. Their energy is very cyclical. They can have bursts of energy that last a couple hours, days, weeks, followed by moments of kind of rest and pulling back to be alone. So they are not meant to be on and available 24/7, but kind of honor when the inspiration comes. It's so important for these people to take rest because when they take rest, they kind of create space for new ideas to kind of bubble up within them. And their strategy in human design is to initiate. As soon as that kind of spark arises, just to follow it, even if they have no idea where it's going to take them. And a second part of their strategy is to just keep the people around them in the loop. It's often very tempting for manifestors to kind of go off and initiate ideas and not let anyone else know. And then people can be very resistant and just feel like a lot of friction in a relationship. So just like giving people a heads up before they take action can bring a lot more ease and harmony into their relationships.
Amazing. And so manifestors are like one side of the manifesting generator, but just without that also tendency to do.
Yeah, like manifestors are doers in their own way, but just like at moments and to bring new ideas to life. I think the difference here between manifesting generators and manifestors is that manifesting generators tend to have a bit more of that consistent doing energy, whereas manifestors, it can ebb and flow. And also, manifesting generators are meant to kind of let things come to them. And then once they feel lit up, then pursue it. Whereas manifestors don't kind of need any external prompting from the world. It's just waiting for that inner spark to arise.
I feel like I've worked for some CEOs that are manifestors. They're great at there's been two CEOs I've worked with where they had the big idea, but then they brought together all of the people to do. And it changed the way I looked at business because so often we think, but how am I going to do that? How am I going to create an app? I know nothing about development, or how am I going to do this? I know nothing about marketing. And it's like, some of the most successful people in the world knew nothing about how to actually create the things they were creating. They just knew it had to be created, and they brought together the right people to do so.
Exactly. Exactly. And they're so good at that. And they're so good at kind of lighting a fire under others to kind of move in a new direction.
So reflectors.
Reflectors are the rarest type, it's just 1% of the population. These are people that are very sensitive to their environment and they're always kind of taking in and mirroring back their environment. So it's so important for them to be very ruthless curators of who they're spending time with and where they're spending time because they're taking it all in. They're so wise. They can just see and sense things that most people don't experience in a space. So it's really best for them to kind of be in positions where they're invited in to share their perspective and all that they see. And they're very fluid people. They might have days where they feel like a manifesting generator like you, like a projector like me, like a manifester. And their job is not to try to kind of put themselves into a box and be just one thing, but really honor whatever feels like them that day, knowing it's all them. And their strategy for really kind of pulling the most aligned opportunities their way is to really just place themselves in spaces that feel good. Cafes, restaurants, cities, co-working spaces, because that really kind of pulls the best experiences to them.
Mm. Put together your dream team of types. If you were like in your company, you're the top with the ideas. What types of people do you have in which roles?
I think that it's really good to have obviously diversity of people in your team. I think for me, I tend to draw on a lot of projectors because I am one, but I think having a team of a lot of projectors is not always the best idea. You kind of need diverse energy. I have always done best working with a generator. So my business partner is a generator. They kind of bring a lot of just like energy and stamina and motivation and clarity and direction in a way that I really benefit from, in a way that really kind of allows me to just like be the human design person. And he's able to kind of do most of the other pieces. I haven't yet had a manifestor on my team. It's always been generators and projectors. I think a manifesting generator could be really, really great. Like when I think of the place I am in right now, which is around, my book comes out in a couple months. It's like a little bit wild, like having a manifesting generator kind of have like a focus, like I'm going to focus on the book piece or I'm going to focus on the content piece, I think is a really great role for them if they're really lit up by it. I think a manifester could be really useful in a position of just like innovation. If there's a place in the business that we really want to disrupt, like, disrupt the way that people experience their human design when they first look up a chart, disrupt the way the chart even is designed, like things like that. I feel like a manifester would really benefit from. I would look to a reflector once our team grows a little bit. We've always kind of kept it super lean because like I don't really have any interest in managing a big team as a projector. I kind of want to just do my thing. But I think having a reflector when the team's a little bit bigger, just to kind of mirror back the things they're seeing and really offering that kind of wise, objective assessment would be really useful. But I think when I'm like in this kind of lean phase, a projector kind of with generators and manifesting generators, I think is probably the most ideal for me.
I feel like when I become a billionaire, I want to hire a live-in sage that's a reflector. Have
100%.
a room at the end of the hallway, pop out, and like, can you witness my family dynamic and tell me?
Please tell me what's going on. But it is so funny because I have two young daughters and I'm married to a generator. I'm a projector. My oldest daughter, her 2-year-old, is a manifesting generator, and my youngest is a manifester. So I do actually have 4 of the 5 types represented in my own little family. So I'm just like, this is wild. I mean, where is the reflector?
Tell me a little bit about your relationship with your husband and how you see your human design types sort of peeking out in everyday life.
I think it's just been so useful for us to know how different we are. We were best friends long before we were partners, and I think that we've always loved the differences, but human design has given us the language for it. I think a few very practical ways, like, our lives are very full right now. I think he really does have the energy to show up in a way that I really rely on. But sometimes generators can be burdened by just like holding everything. And so that's a kind of a big thing for me to look out for of like, are there things that I can take off his plate? And also, I think generators like you really benefit when they have space to kind of pursue the things that really lift them up. And so I think me as a partner, I really learned to just like encourage him to take that space whenever he can, because like that benefits all of us. Um, I think also we're very different. This extends beyond our type in that he is somebody that's very fast in his decisions. He knows immediately when a thing is presented, whether it's for him or not. I'm somebody who needs a lot more time. And we make collective decisions, obviously, all the time. So he's really kind of learned to give me time. There's also another piece of our chart, the last piece I'll share, and this is about a piece called our profile. Is he's somebody who like really needs to understand how things work. Like he needs to like take it all apart, understand the foundations, and like I don't care how it works. If it works, it works. So like it's been really useful for us to understand that. I think of a story. I don't know whether I share this one in the book, but we went to like a magic show many years ago. And I was like so blown away by the magician. And I was just like, ended the show and I was convinced it was actual magic. And I was like, this is amazing. We just met a wizard. Like he just made things disappear. Like that was it. I just kind of believed that that was the case. And my husband goes up to him after and he's like, so how did you learn? Like he like needed to like understand each magic trick, like that was kind of his orientation. So I think it's actually been very helpful for us to understand that because it's just a very different orientation towards life. He needs to understand why, whereas I'm like, it works. That's amazing. Let's move on. So there have just been so many elements of our design that have really kind of shed light on how different we are in a way that I think has allowed us to really appreciate each other and not have any expectation that we're the same.
I need to understand how things work too, deeply. And then the thing is every single piece of my worldview needs to make sense with the other one. And so all of a sudden, if I learn new information about science or about this thing over here, and then I'll contrast it to like something I learned in spirituality 12 years ago. And I'm like, well, then that means this isn't true. I need to go back over here and go super deep. So I don't know if that's my human design or my ADD, but whatever it is, it sends me down a lot of really deep, but really fun rabbit holes.
Yeah. Well, you're also somebody who's just like meant to have like a very kind of strong perspective on the world, which can be ever changing. But it also makes sense to me that you're like, I need it to keep evolving because your design is so much around, and this is beyond your type. Your design is so much around innovation and newness and just like, and so things are going to have to keep changing for you to kind of keep up with that.
Do you see anything surprising or weird in my chart?
I would say that like I find our whole chart surprising and weird. You know what I mean? Like they're just so funky in the best way because they're just like, I mean, I can't even tell you how often I've sat with friends and I'll look at their chart. I'm like, oh my God, this doesn't make sense knowing them. And then I'll share it with them. They're like, I know, right? Crazy. And I'm like, oh my God, I just like don't even know people's internal world. Like this is so amazing. I would say like what I just said is feels very there's like a real theme in your design of like innovation. There's like a real drive for newness. And you're somebody who kind of like brings newness to everything you touch. And it sounds like even that example you shared is like your perspective. You have one of my favorite channels in human design, and it's one of my favorites because I too have this channel, but it's called the Freak to Genius, which is a weird name. I don't use that name in my teaching, but it basically means that like you are somebody who's had here to have like kind of weird, very like cutting edge, interesting perspectives on things that can feel like a little bit alien and out there for some people. Like you just kind of see things light years ahead of other people. And why it's called Freak to Genius is that when you share those insights with people that are ready to hear them, like say your podcast listeners, people that are really opting in to like hear your point of view, like you can be seen as an absolute genius. But if you share them and force them on people that are not ready, like you can be seen as a total freak because people are like, what in the world is she talking about? And this was really my experience with human design because like I really kind of forced this knowledge on like, I was like, I want to bring this to companies immediately. I worked with hundreds of companies now. I love bringing it to corporate context, but like I kind of like entered that a little bit early and I was just like really trying to convince people of it. Whereas there were like so many people like ready to learn and excited to learn. And I was just like, oh, let me like start there. Let me start with the people that are like really ready to hear about this new weird system that I've discovered. And the other piece I would just share about this strength of yours is that there are some things that might seem incredibly obvious to you that are not obvious to other people. And so a big part of your job is learning how to simplify the things that you see in a way that makes them make sense. And I think like my gift in human design is that like, how can I make human design make sense? And so for you, it could be a thousand other things.
That all makes sense to me. It's actually part of why I started a podcast was because I needed to find my people in everyday life. I sometimes don't know what to have conversations about. There's like memes or reels that'll be like me testing this in my friend group. And you're like, so you heard about the lost history of Earth? You know, like, remember when they destroyed all those bells? Do you really think it's ammunition? You know, I just talked about that on a music episode. But yeah, like I said, rabbit holes galore. But I love my worldview now. I don't know who I share it with.
Honestly, your design is very much like you're kind of going, you're doing your own thing and you're inspiring others on the way.
So when you are looking at your family, you've got little pieces of each. Do you use your understanding of your family members' human design in the ways that you parent or structure your family life?
I think that knowing that I'm a projector for sure informs the way that I show up as a mother. You know, knowing that I need rest, I need time alone. Like I really knew that early on from having my first. And I think I might have felt guilty about that, but I was like, no, I need this. Like I have to go to Pilates. I need a moment to myself. So I think that it's given me a lot of permission to show up as a mother in a way that is more sustainable. I ask for a lot of help. I have a lot of help, you know, like I know that I'm not meant to do this alone. And you know, and that can be obviously paid help, but also like I will text my neighbors when I'm like, I am under resourced, please come help me, you know, and I'm lucky to have really amazing neighbors. But I think my design gave me a lot of permission on that front. I think with my daughters, like it's very interesting because I mean, similar to kind of the beginning of our conversation, like I don't want human design to be this box that I'm putting them in where I'm like, you must be a manifesting generator. So it's not that. It's more that I kind of have it just at the back of my mind when I'm observing life. And it's just fun to be like, oh, I love that you're doing this because that's so aligned with your design. And it's so different than me. So I think where it's helpful right now is that I have no expectation that either of my daughters will be anything like me. And I'm kind of using their designs just as like frameworks to kind of explore the way they are. You know, my manifesting generator daughter is 2 years old. She is the most charismatic, full of life. Like she was laughing in hysterics at 2 months old. Like everything was hilarious. And like she's just really full of life in a way that is so fun and like so manifesting generator-y. And I think that I'm just kind of paying attention to her gut instinct and what she's drawn to because I know that like she's here to respond to life in that way. I think my manifestor daughter, she's young, she's 5 months old. So I didn't mention this, but a core value of manifestors is freedom. They just have to feel free to do what they want, when they want, how they want. Like they're just here to kind of be in charge. And my 5 month old, like she started rolling over at 2 months and kind of broke out of her swaddle and was like, screw this. Like, and like, it's just so physical. Like she just wants to be like, she's just so strong and very much wants to kind of be in charge and do all these things. And like, I just was witnessing these things at such a young age. And like, you know, part of like, I remember like, I was reading online. It's like, you can't let them sleep on their stomach at 2 months old. Like it's too young, but like, I could not stop her. I would like flip her back and she would flip over. I would flip her back. And I remember calling my pediatrician and she was like, you can't stop her. And I was like, God, design says the exact same thing, you know? So I think it's more just a thing that I'm using as an observational tool for now, you know? And then I'll see, like, I remember a woman that I worked with, a book coach that I worked with, she had a 6-year-old or maybe a 7-year-old manifestor. And every night she would sit and kind of read to her parts of her human design guide that I put together for her because it was just so empowering for her daughter. So like I definitely will not force it on either of my daughters, but I will introduce it as a tool if they want. And often my experience is that kids love it. You know, it's just a really empowering tool to be themselves.
The NBA playoffs are here, and I'm getting my bets in on FanDuel. Talk to me, Chuck GPT. What do you know?
All sorts of interesting stuff, even Charles Barkley's greatest fear.
Hey, nobody needs to know that.
New customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in Ohio. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
That sounds like my baby, my first one. He would not be in the swaddle, but he's a projector. And so I need to look up my other one. But yeah, Bravery's a projector, and somehow we laugh, he's going to be like a little CEO or a manager or something.
Totally.
Telling people what to do all the time.
Well, projectors are like so well suited to be leaders, you know, but like an example of that, just quickly, like knowing that you have a projector kid. Projectors thrive with like words of affirmation and recognition. They love to be invited in. They love to be asked for their perspective. So like there are just ways where it's like, oh, like let me just like make sure that they feel really recognized so they don't have to go seek it out. Let me ask for their perspective. Like let me create space for them to share it because it is so valuable. So like there are just ways that you can like create space for them to kind of be in their magic at a really young age.
So when we are considering using human design to make decisions, how do you balance intuition and making sure you're connecting to your inner wisdom and following that, while also considering your human design so that you don't start outsourcing that inner wisdom to your chart and lose that skill, if that makes sense?
Totally makes sense. So what I would actually say is human design, the way that it's going to tell you how to make decisions, and obviously the name of my book is How Do You Choose? It's like, how do you use human design to make more empowered decisions, is it's going to help you connect to the best way of accessing your intuition. So when I sit with somebody in session, I'm not going to be like, oh, you should take this job or leave this partner, but I'll be like, oh, you're somebody who's like apparently meant to be like more of a gut-based decision maker. You're somebody who's meant to kind of talk things out to find your truth. You're somebody who's meant to trust your kind of spontaneous intuition. So I actually find those things kind of one and the same. It just helps people kind of connect to their own way of accessing it. Like if I was to use you as an example, you are somebody who's a very gut-based decision maker. It's like so visceral, it's so in your belly. You're somebody who responds well to kind of specific options like this or this. But there's a nuance for you that when it comes to really big decisions in your life, you're meant to sleep on things and kind of trust your gut feeling over time and kind of trust what remains exciting and not just trust what feels good in the moment. So I'm curious, like, how does that feel like it, I guess, supports or undermines your relationship to your intuition? Like, does it feel like it helps it? Does it feel like it complicates it?
You know, it does help because I have historically looked at impulsivity as a problem. And now in my experience of life at this moment, my impulsivity has actually been really, really helpful. And the way that I see these two different phases in my life is it was a problem when I was really out of alignment. And so I didn't really understand what my inner voice was. I was chasing other people's ideas and I would just make decisions really quickly. And so I still make decisions in the same way. And there was a period of time where I'm like, I don't know, should I sit on this? And I'm like, all I could think about, I can't do anything else because it's all I could think about is pressing that buy button. And so I had to just make sure, okay, let me unravel the addictive tendencies and just get back to my heart. And if I'm following my heart, it is straight on. But if I'm doing it for the wrong reasons, it definitely throws me out of balance.
Yeah, and I think that's really what human design does, is it, and that's what the book is meant to do, is like it just helps you reconnect to what actually feels true to you. So it does feel like a little bit weird because it's like you're looking to the system, but the system is just bringing you back to yourself. Like I had a friend recently who was struggling with a housing question. She didn't know whether she wanted this place and she didn't know whether she wanted to live there. And she had an advanced copy of my book, and I was like, just turn to this chapter. And she turned to this chapter around how she makes decisions. And she was like, oh my God, I know exactly what to do. And it wasn't because the book was like, take that house. It was because it just reminded her how to actually reconnect to what she really wanted and make sure that that was the driving force. So I think that human design actually what it does, is it helps you connect to what really does feel true to you.
Your book talks about different authorities for decision making. What would you say is, well, first, what are authorities?
Authorities are the part of our chart that help us know how to assess which decisions are right for us. And it helps us connect to that intuition.
And so, what do you think are there any misunderstood authorities? And how does it really work?
Yeah, I mean, there are like, I think there are myths and misunderstanding about each of them, but I would say that it just reminds us how different we are. Like, there's so much talk out there, like, trust your gut, listen to your gut. And, like, for example, you are for sure one of those people. I am not. I don't have a really strong gut response. I like really do best by sleeping on things and feeling into things. So I think that, like, what is more generally misunderstood is that we are meant to make decisions in the same way, or that one principle will apply to all of us. And honestly, we all just come to truth differently. Like some people, as you'll read in the book, if you get it and explore human design, is like are meant to take a full 28 to 30 days before they make a big decision. And I remember I tell a story in the book of a couple that's trying to decide whether to move to the East Coast or not. And the wife was so frustrated with her husband because she's just like, he's waffling. Like, it's one day it's this, it's one day it's that. And like, what she didn't understand was that like he was just going through his process. Like, clarity would come, he would know, and it would be very clear. But like, it was not an instantaneous knowing like she would know. Like, it would come after a couple of weeks, after many conversations. So I think that we all have different ways that are arriving at our truth. And I think it's so worth understanding what it is for us, because how we enter into things is everything. If we enter into the wrong job, relationship, whatever, like it's easy to kind of then get stuck in a thing that's not right for us. But if we take the time to really assess what's correct for us, then like we really set ourselves up for success in all the ways. I tell another story in the book of a woman who came to me, and through our conversation it became clear that like she was about to get married to somebody she did not actually want to marry. And I remember asking her, like, when did you know that he wasn't right for you? And she said, from the minute I met him, from the minute I like entered the relationship. So she always knew it was right, she just didn't trust it. And so I think it just helps us kind of really dial in on like what is right for us, but then also to then trust that knowing.
If someone finds themselves in a position where they keep making decisions they regret later, how would you advise them to sort of use their human design to realign and potentially break this habit?
Yeah, I would definitely advise them to look to this piece of their design, their authority, and just so people understand how the book is structured, I kind of walk through each authority as it relates to career and relationships. So kind of what it looks like to use that authority to make the right decisions in your career. What does it look like to use that authority in relationships, and how others can support you in it. So if I was to sit with that person, my first conversation or question would be around how they're making decisions, kind of what their decision making matrix is. And then I would kind of use their authority to guide a conversation, because say somebody has a really gut-based authority and they're meant to make decisions super fast in the moment, it might be interesting to sit with them and see what is their initial instinct about a decision, because often those people will have a first instinct, a best instinct and a first instinct, and then kind of talk themselves out of it and not act on it. So I'd kind of like have that conversation. Or say somebody's meant to kind of really take their time with decisions, it might be interesting to have that conversation and see if they're like feeling the pressure to be really fast, and whether that's kind of moving them into the wrong place. So obviously we all have different ways of making decisions, but I would really kind of return them to what their human design says and see how that aligns with how they are making decisions or not.
I'm realizing I thought my husband, for some reason, I thought I remembered him being a generator, but he's actually a projector. So is one
Oh,
of my
wow.
kids, and my youngest is a manifester.
Oh my gosh. So you're the one manifesting generator. You're the one kind of generator energy in the household. Do you notice that at all with your husband around maybe his energy being a little bit less consistent than yours and kind of needing the breaks?
Yeah, yes, and he is the most consistent person I know as of like, when he discovered in college, I think I want to do graphic design, and he's stuck to it his whole life without questioning that. That blows my mind because it's so different for me. And it's
Yeah.
been the most beautiful partnership because I truly credit my commitment to entrepreneurship, one, to feeling like my life was ruined and I couldn't do anything else. But the other one was watching him. And so we create in very different ways. He runs a team. He's really great at running a team. I relate to what you said about not wanting a big team. It's not like his team's huge, but there's probably 10 people on it now. And I would rather have like 2 VAs and then outsource some things to his team. And so, yeah, we work very differently, but watching him has really inspired me to bring some of those things out in my life.
I love it. And projectors are here for mastery. They are here to like master a thing and just become really great at that thing. And it's really unsurprising too that like he's good at managing a team and stewarding people because that is one of their gifts. I think one thing to be aware of, and I don't know whether you observe this in him, is that as projectors, we are very susceptible to overdoing and overworking and doing too much and often not knowing when to stop. So it can be really good to have the people in our life remind us that it's okay to take rest, even with families and teams and jobs and all the things.
And so when I'm looking at some of my family's authorities, I see emotional coming up a lot in the solar plexus.
Yeah.
But then I see in my husband, his authority is splenic. What are the differences between those two?
So is emotional true for you and both your kids?
I believe it's true for me. I'll have to.
It is true for you. I can verify that.
Yeah.
But it's true for both your kids too. So emotional basically means that you guys might have an initial instinct about a decision, but for the big decisions in your life, it's really good to sleep on it and just feel into it and just see if your excitement remains. And the idea is that you're somebody who can be so easily excitable, and like on the high of your emotional wave, you might be like, I'm going to say yes to everything. And on the low, you might be like, I don't want to do it. And then you might wake up the next day and be like, what have I committed to? And so
It just happened.
there's just like it happens. And like I will say, as somebody that shares this, I feel like it's annoying to wait, and yet I've always found it's worth it. And so for you, there's something about giving yourself a buffer time to really confirm that your initial instinct remains strong. That's true for both your kids too, that they aren't deciding when they're super in their feelings, the highs or the lows, but are deciding from a more kind of calm, settled, and grounded place. Your husband is actually meant to be very fast in his decision making. This kind of quiet whisper of an intuition is meant to be the thing that guides him, but it's really quiet. And it's probably really hard to hear when he's around you, all of you who have really strong feelings. So having time and space to kind of just connect to his own intuition is so essential, and to trust it. Because my guess, it's probably really easy to talk himself out of it.
That is an interesting just data point, because so it's interesting how our astrology charts sort of fit into different things. And what just came up for me is I know he's a Libra. And so one of his just, what's it called? Shadow sides, like when he feels, he just relates to being indecisive about certain things. And so this could be one of those things where it's like, wait, but if you know your human design, instead of being like, no, but this is indecision, it's like, listen for that quiet whisper and choose quickly, and you'll probably relieve a lot of suffering.
It's so right on. I can't tell you how often I've sat with people that think they're indecisive when they just aren't choosing. They just don't know how they're meant to choose.
Yeah.
And I think like his authority, especially, like it's very quiet. So if he's like trying to make all these big decisions around other people, it's probably gonna be really hard. If he goes for a walk and like spends some time alone or does some yoga or whatever, like he might find the answer comes to him very easily. So it is just so, I think it just helps us know how to choose.
It'll also be interesting seeing how the different energies play out with my kids, because they're both Pisces, born 10 days and 2 years apart. And so they've got that sort of emotional side. They both have the emotional authority, but one's a manifestor, one's a projector. I wonder how that's gonna.
I know. I mean, and it's nice for them to share that, because they both do have this kind of ebbing and flowing energy, but one is somebody who's like meant to kind of lead and guide and see others, and the other one's a very disruptive, innovative force who needs a lot of freedom. So it'll just be interesting to kind of see if you witness those differences as they get older.
Well, we've covered so much. I feel like I could talk to you for like 8 more hours just diving into all of this. Maybe we will one day. But I love leaving listeners with one thing to do or think about to sort of ground this info into their lives. I don't want it to be to find their chart. I want that to be automatic. Find your chart, people. Figure out what you are. Now, what's one thing they can do with that?
Can I do it by type?
Yes.
Okay, so for generators and manifesting generators, I would say just choose one thing to do this week whenever you're listening to kind of do just because. Like do something like that just brings you joy and feels fun, not because like you can monetize it immediately, not because like it's going to take you in a certain direction, but like just for fun. Like I think so often these types forget like when you're genuinely excited in that way, like you are so magnetic and it gives you so much energy. So kind of just like prioritizing your own satisfaction in that way. I would say for projectors, I would invest in spending time with somebody who makes you feel deeply seen. When we feel deeply seen, it gives us so much energy and like to kind of show up in every part of our lives. So really investing in the people where it feels like there's real reciprocity, where you're not the only one asking questions, but you're being asked questions too. For a manifester, I would say if there's any kind of like urge that rises up within you, some like inspiration you feel to go do a thing, whether it's to like launch a website or reach out to a person, like just do it. Like you are just meant to like make the first move, follow its urges, like see what happens when you do. And for a reflector, I would say spend time in a space that you love just because you love being in that space. You might be so surprised by the things that arise, but you being in the right space makes the biggest difference and gets you in the right flow.
Well, thank you so much for just all of the knowledge that you bring. I find it's so informative and fun to look up our own charts, but when you're actually talking to somebody who's embodied this and can see it in a new way, there's just so much more that comes out. So for listeners that are interested in reading your newest book and finding your other offerings online, where's the best place to connect?
So the book, I'm sure I'll have it in the show notes. It's at humandesignblueprint.com/pre-order-book, I believe. And if you are interested in kind of really just using human design as a tool to find more flow in your life, whether it's with your kids or partner or family, or whether you want to use it as a tool to really, find more clarity in your career and figure out what's next or how to refine what you're already doing, it is the perfect place for that. It's full of so many stories and examples and practical tips. And then also, if you want to get a guide all about your unique design that kind of goes far beyond type and strategy and authority, you can get that at humandesignblueprint.com. We have the discount code MindLove still active. And I also have certification courses and trainings and all the things if you're just like, I am ready to learn and go deep into all of it.
All the links from this episode will be at mindlove.com/396. Your challenge for this week is to notice one story that you've been telling yourself that might not actually be true. Maybe it's something about how you make decisions, or how you manage your energy, or why you need so much time alone. Take that story and hold it up to the light. Ask yourself, is this really true about me? Or am I comparing myself to someone with a completely different design? The moment you question these stories, they start to lose their power over you. And when you replace them with a story that honors how you're actually wired, everything shifts. Give it a try and let me know how it goes. You can reach out to me at MindLoveMelissa on Instagram. And speaking of stories that matter, I've been obsessed with watching the magic happen inside of Story Love. This community is honestly blowing my mind. We have a grandfather crafting his legacy for future generations, a woman who's kind of lost everything and is finding her way forward, a travel business owner capturing transformational journeys, even a coach who's learning to tell his story in a way that builds instant trust with the women that he serves. But what makes me most excited is seeing how they're all using my step-by-step storytelling system to get clarity in days instead of years. None of them are professional writers, although they all can be, but they're just people who realize that their story is the key that opens every door. So if you're curious about joining us for the next round, get on the waitlist at mindlove.com/storylove or text the word story to 33777. And don't forget to sign up for the Morning Mind Love at mindlove.com or text the word morning to get daily doses of perspective that'll help you rewrite the stories that are holding you back. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.